Hello chums, and welcome to Setups for Simpletons. I've created an entire series dedicated to explaining Gran Turismo 7's quirky and sometimes unforgiving tuning system, but sometimes it's nice to just copy someone else's homework and be done with it. So in this series I will take one car at a time, show a complete setup, and a lap of the Nürburgring for good measure. Disclaimer, if you use my setup it does not mean you're a simpleton. Let's begin! The Ferrari 812 Superfast was added a few months ago, and on the face of it, it looked to be very similar to the F12, which is pretty much the older version of the same thing. However, once both cars have all the upgrades fitted, it's clear the newer 812 is a different animal thanks to huge downforce levels. This setup will be for the car's maximum 1000 horsepower on racing soft tyres, with all upgrades fitted including wide body and body rigidity increase. For the visuals, I've got aftermarket wheels in the standard size. Increasing the size can make the car more agile, decreasing the size can make the car more forgiving over curves. The car has a front splitter for front downforce, the ever important rear diffuser for extra front and rear downforce, and a rear wing. Believe it or not, both Type A and B rear wings provide the same downforce levels. For those interested, the livery is based on a 575 GTC race car that I found on a Google search for inspiration, and you can find it by searching for Super Turismo, as with most of my other liveries. The setup was a tad difficult to get dialed in. The body height is 30mm above minimum to prevent any wheel arch rubbing. The anti-roll bars are higher at the rear because it slightly improves stability under braking. Compression by default is set very low, so increasing it can make the car less unsettled when travelling over curves. Natural frequency is lower at the rear, which reduces power oversteer, though this car is still very quick to step out of line. Camber is reduced from default settings, which slightly improves traction in a straight line. Front toe out has been added to reduce lift-off oversteer, and rear toe in has been added to reduce power oversteer. Initial torque and braking are set low to improve agility, and acceleration sensitivity is low-ish to reduce power oversteer. Front downforce is maxed, and rear downforce is 140 points higher. You can probably get away with setting it lower, though I prefer the overall stability of high rear downforce. Gear ratios can't really be messed up since this car has 7 gears, so plenty to work with. The 812 is a difficult car to get used to. At lower speeds the car is very quick to step the tail out when accelerating out of corners. Meanwhile, at higher speeds, accelerating will cause front end lift, and thus understeer. The rear weight bias also causes slight lift-off oversteer. Coupled with extremely high levels of downforce, this car has to be driven differently to most other road cars in the game. I found the most success by lifting off and effectively coasting through corners to carry higher speeds, and accelerating late once the car is mostly straightened out. Once you get used to the downforce levels, this car can rival the fastest four-wheel drive cars in the game, which is hinted at by the slightly insane 870 performance point rating. The downside of this is that the 812 is very mediocre when you try to make it work at 700 or 800 performance points because you have to limit the power so much. So the 812 perhaps isn't the best car for grinding credits, but if you're trying to embarrass an absolute spanner driving an R35 in an online lobby, this car will work fairly well. In the end, I managed a 5 minutes 55, beating the Porsche Cayman with the 1400 horsepower Maverick engine. This is easily one of the absolute fastest rear-wheel drive cars in the game, except for top speed. So, that was my setup for the Ferrari 812 Super Fugly. I hope it helped. Thank you very much for watching. Please like, subscribe, and kick me in the bell so that you get notified of future uploads. Take care of yourself, and ta-ra!